Well, our first witness this afternoon wishes, I understand, to be known as Gary.
That's right.
Well, Gary, would you please come forward and Mary will ask you to take the oath.
Please state your full name.
Gary James Webster.
Take the book in your raised hand and repeat after me. I swear by Almighty God
I swear by Almighty God
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth. Thanks.
Gary,
Hello?
you have severe haemophilia A, is that
Yes.
right? And you were diagnosed at about 6 months old.
That's correct.
Initially, where were you treated?
Initially, when I was first diagnosed at 6 months old, I think it would have been Lewisham Hospital in Kent. And then my family moved down south to the area where I am now when I was about 6 or 7. And then I would have come under Southampton, Dr. Leslie, I think it would have been.
And when you were, before you went to the Lord Mayor Treloar school, do you recall what treatment you were given for your bleeds?
Oh, it would have been cryo all the time.
And can you tell us a little bit about the pattern of your bleeds at that age?
I think from memory and what my parents said, my father was driving me to Southampton Hospital once a week, once a fortnight, and I'd go and see Dr. Leslie in the path lab at the Royal Southands, not the General, and be there for 5 or 6 hours having cryo.
You went up to Lord Mayor Treloar School in 1975,
Yeah,
starting when you were about age 10.
yeah.
How did that come about? How did you end up applying, or your parents applying for you, to the school?
Because I just missed so much school. I was off all the time, got a bit of bullying, and I had a lot of problems with my knees. So it was just decided that the best way forward would for me to go to Treloar. So, as you say, I went there just as I was 10.
And when you say it was decided you'd go to Treloar's, do you remember who made those decisions? And have your parents talked about that at all?
Not really. I know it was through the local authority. I've learnt that since. And my parents have said, oh, you know, the reason you went there is because your education or because you can do education there while being ill, so or bleeding. So that was the reason. And I believe there is a form somewhere where my dad, I think, probably filled it in.
And when you first arrived at Treloar's, can you tell us something of your first impressions?
Oh, it's just this massive place. It was in Hollybourne in 1975, so I would have been one of the first 3 haemophiliacs that went. There was about 10 or 12 boys with varying disabilities, but Florence Treloar School was a girls' school, so there was about 12 boys and the rest were girls. And I stayed in the hostel there for the first year, and then moved up to Froyle and spent the next 4 years there, 3-4 years there, and then moved back down to Hollybourne, which then was the upper school because it had gone co-ed.
And in terms of your memory of Treloar's in those early days, of the education and the social life, what can you tell us about what it was like as a pupil?
It was great. I mean, it was a marvellous place. Obviously, I didn't know anything about what I know now, but it was great. I mean, education was just like a normal education, classrooms, and you know, you had to do prep in the evening afterwards. And then the social life was good because you were with people with haemophilia, so you helped each other and things like that, and you got on with other disabilities as well. So, I mean, honestly, it was a great time, and I think we all enjoyed it. But you know, there you go.
You've said that initially you recall being treated by Dr. Kirk and Dr. Rainsford.
Yes, Dr. Rainsford, yes.
And then later on by Dr. Wasif and Dr. Arenstat.
That's right.
I'm going to put up on the screen some of your records from Treloar's just to have a look at some of the treatment you received when you were there.
Okay.
If we could have WITN 1723002, please, and page 4 of that. We can see there the autumn term in 1975, that throughout that term, when you had a bleed, you were given cryoprecipitate.
Yes.
And then if we can see that it is about 3 or 4 bleeds a month.
Yeah, that would be about right. Yeah.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
And then if we look down to Easter term of 1976, we can see 3 bleeds are recorded, 1 treated with cryoprecipitate, and then the next 2 treated with haemophil.
Yeah.
Again, does that seem about the right timing of the change over from cryoprecipitate?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I can remember having cryo when I first went to college, or Florence Treloar, but it got less and less, and the more we were given concentrate, they told us. I mean, I remember them telling us about it. Said this new wonderful treatment. Don't get me wrong, it was good, it worked, and it enabled us to have a fairly active life, far better, and it was quicker as well to do. But yeah, they gradually phased it out.
And when that transition happened to the haemophil, as we can see here, can you tell us any more of what you were told about it?
Nothing, other than it was a great drug and it would help improve. It was quicker than cryo. I wouldn't even been able to tell you what it was called. It was, what was I, 11, 12 years old? There was no explanation like you get now or anything like that. You just said, right, you're having this, and I had it.
And do you know if your parents were told anything
No.
about the change?
No, definitely not.
From other records, we can see that you were also previously treated by Dr. Chisholm.
Yes, Southampton, yeah.
Did Dr. Chisholm say anything about the change to factor concentrates when you went back to your home centre in the holidays?
Not really, because I can't actually remember much about while I was on holiday actually going to see them. I must have done, but then nothing sticks in my memory. She always gave me cryo, and Dr. Leslie always gave me cryo. Presumably, she just followed what I'd been given at Treloar's. I don't even know if she would have made the decision on what treatment I had. Maybe she would, but I don't know. I'm sorry.
Could we then turn to page 57 within the same document, Shumik? 57, sorry. And if we can turn it round. And we can see at this point that there's the column material given, cryoprecipitate, and then the remarks column, SB College. It seems that that's sick bay college.
Yeah,
What's your recollection of where you received treatment in those early days when you were at the college?
90% time it would have been at the college or in sick bay. Nowhere else. I presume that SB does stand for sick bay. Yeah, it must do.
And is that your recollection
Yes.
as well, that cryoprecipitate was given to you in the sick bay?
Oh yeah, yeah. Or it could have been at the hospital though. Saying that, what year was this? 75.
1975.
It was. I probably had a bleed, and then we were taken from Florence Treloar School, Hollybourne, to Treloar Hospital. and transfused with cryo at the hospital under Sister Turk. But that was only for a fairly short couple of years, I would have thought.
That's what I was just trying to understand. In 1975, whether there was ever any treatment given in the sickbay of the college.
Not
or whether
not
you
in
were
75,
always
I wouldn't have thought.
given. But you can't quite remember.
No, I can't remember, but we definitely would have been on a van up to Treloar's.
There is a difference in the timing at which either the bleed or the material was given.
Yeah,
Both the ones which are marked as sickbay are in the evening, 6 p.m.
Yeah.
9 p.m.
So that must have been in the sick bay at the college. I was obviously not allowed to go back to the house, and and I must have been put in sick bay. There was one there, knee bleed. I'm not sure why I would have been put in sick bay for a hand bleed, but yeah. So maybe there were. It's difficult to remember now. Maybe I did have cryo in sick bay. I mean, they could have. At that time, they probably could have mixed it up there, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. But you don't sound as though you have any actual recollection.
No, I
of this.
don't. No, I'm afraid.
So this is piecing it together.
Yeah. We definitely had cryo at Treloar's at that time, at the hospital. I honestly can't remember whether we had cryo.
You can't remember any difference of location. It's where you had your treatment, depending on the timing.
It would have been at the hospital in Norton or at the college in Hollybourne. I would have thought if I'd had cryo, it would have been in the mornings at the hospital, and that's why you point out about in the evening. That would have been. I can't believe I was at the hospital at that time of night. So I think it must have been in the sick bay.
Yeah. Thank you.
We see something similar in 1977, and if you can't remember, please don't worry. I just want to see if it jogs a memory for you. It's page 63 of the same document, please, Shumik. We're in January 1977, and the second entry down, we can see 22nd of January 1977, cryo, SB Col, and then the fourth entry and the fifth entry in February 77, cryo, SB College.
Yeah, no, that's. Yeah, I would have had cryo at the college. Must have been.
In terms of the products that you received, I want to have a look at the record, or what the records suggest that you received. If we could go to page 7 of the same document, Shumik. Again, we're in 1977. We can see here in the autumn term a series of entries of the treatment that you received: cryobulin, haemophil, Lister, and coate, and also cryoprecipitate at the end.
Yeah.
Do you have any recollection of any discussion about the different products that you would receive?
No, none at all. Then we just went to a room. 90% of the time, it would have been drawn up in a machine. If we were slightly older and learning home treatment and how to do it ourselves, we would have probably done it ourselves on that rolling machine you saw this morning on the film. No, I mean, they just said, oh, we'll give you cryobulin, or we'll give you this, or we'll give you that. There was no can we, or we're changing it, or anything like that. There's nothing at all.
Just before you move on from that, Ms. Fraser-Butlin, if we look at the batch numbers,
Yes.
there are some occasions where, I mean, I'm presuming those are batch numbers, first of all. That's your understanding,
They
is it?
appear to be from the rest of the records.
Then against 41077, for instance, 684 units of cryopulin, there are two numbers.
Yes.
And it might have been all one product, but The next time, you see 5076 featuring again, and then you see the second number, 16576, featuring, and then that features later on and again in October 77, and there's a mixture again there of two different numbers.
Absolutely.
Is the implication from that if the administrator found it more convenient or wanted to, they simply mixed up the batches?
So it's certainly an inference you could draw from the records that we have, that multiple batches of the same product were used, and there does not appear, it may be something you conclude, that there was not any batch dedication in the way that we have seen in other centres.
Well, it would be completely contrary to the idea of reserving a specific batch for a particular patient.
Yes, indeed. And that's something we see throughout the records, and we will see as we go through the evidence this afternoon. Before we leave 1977, Gary, could we turn to page 67 of the same document, please? And there is an entry. The date is not entirely clear. I think it's the 30th of September 1977 in the middle of the page. We can see an entry at 11 o'clock in the morning in relation to your right ankle, and it says Lister, open brackets, trial, close brackets. Do you know anything about being involved or receiving any treatment in relation to a Lister trial?
No.
And then, sorry. Sorry, I've just lost my page reference. If I can just have a moment. Yes. Could we go back to page 64, please, Shumik? We are at the... No, I'm sorry, that's not quite the right page. My page numbers are out of order. Apologies. Page 7, Shumik. We come on to the spring term of 1978.
Yep.
At the bottom of the page, and we can see here that in the spring term of 78 there is cryoprecipitate given to you, haemophil, coate, factor 8, Lister, haemophil. So we can see that factor 8 was also given to you at that point.
Yes.
And again, in relation to both the 2nd of February and the 3rd of March, there appear to be two different batch numbers in relation to haemophil given.
Yeah. I only imagine that each bottle had different amounts of units in it or something, so it was a different batch. So if I was going to have a 20 or 30% rise, then obviously that was the closest they could get to my weight sort of ratio, I suppose.
And when the products were being prepared for you, mixed up for you, were you aware that they were mixing different products? Was there anything going on?
No.
Noticed?
No, I not until we started probably doing it ourselves. So I probably learned when I was about 12 or 13. So probably around this time. I mean, we just put the water in the bottles and put them on the machine. I don't think at that time we actually filled in the forms. I can't quite remember, but no, I mean, it was just normal. We didn't really, well, I certainly didn't really take much notice of all the different batches.
And then could we have TREL 40326_105, please? And it's page 13. And if we look at the entry dated the 12th of November 1978, on the right-hand side of the page, next to the stamped table, we can see there that there's a trial dose, grade 1. And then at the bottom of the page, in relation to the 16th of November, again, we can see in capitals, trial.
Yeah.
It might appear that, again, there was some form of trial in relation to the concentrates you were receiving. Were you aware of anything of that sort?
Not at all. No.
If we move on in time to 1979,
Yep.
could I have WITN 1723002, please? Page 13. At the bottom of the page, there are two entries, 27th of March 1979 and 29th of March 1979.
Yes.
We see what appears from your records to be the first reference to prophylaxis.
Yeah.
Just before that, you'd had a bleed on the 23rd of March
Yes.
in the left arm and the right knee. What do you recall about prophylaxis initially, in those early days of 1979?
I was put on it probably twice weekly, presumably to stop me having regular bleeds, because at that time I was having a lot of knee bleeds, and obviously something to do with my tooth there as well. But I would imagine it was just to stop me bleeding rather than on demand. But you know, after this time, we were all on prophylaxis to presumably stop us bleeding, but that's what we thought at the time. So.
At the very beginning of prophylaxis being introduced,
Yeah.
or what it appears to be being introduced, do you recall if it was linked to having had a particularly bad bleed? So,
Yes, sometimes if you'd had like 3 or 4 in the same joint for, in a row, they may give you prophylaxis to help it recover and also to cover you for physio or something like that. So they would give you a dose before you went to physiotherapy or something like that. Yeah.
could we then move on to page 17, please, Shumik? No, that's not right. That's not right. Page 17. It's only a couple of pages on from where we were. Page 17. No. Just 4 pages from where we were.
We were on 105, weren't we?
No, we were on WITN 1723002,
Thank you.
and we were at internal page 13,
Yep.
and we just want the internal page 17. No. It's 2 more pages ahead. That's right, thank you. We can see here in January 1980 that you received prophylaxis
Yeah.
on 3 occasions, the 8th of January, the 10th of January, the 12th of January, and then again on the 14th, the 16th, the 20th and the 22nd of January.
Yes.
And we can see that same information, but in a slightly different form, which is what I want to just look at with you on page 23. Yes, that's right. What we have here, which is something that appears in a number of places in your records, it is a form which is headed transfusion requirements not related to current bleeds.
Right.
Indication, prophylaxis for physio, both knees.
Yeah.
Duration 2/52, 2 weeks. And then we've got the dates of the prophylaxis that you were
Yeah.
given. The documents appear to suggest that prophylaxis then was used to enable physiotherapy to take place. And I think that's what your recollection is as well.
Well, yeah, they certainly did give a cover dose, for it. But they usually called it cover dose rather than prophylaxis. But yeah, that's what they told us anyway.
So they talked to you about it being a cover dose.
That's what I always thought, because they wanted you to build your muscles and your joints up, but they didn't want you to bleed into them while you were because sometimes you lost movement in your joints, so they wanted to get that movement back. And I've always called it a cover dose, so I wouldn't call it prophylaxis.
Okay. And then if we carry on to page 25, please. Internal page 25. Yep, 2 pages back from that. We can see quite extensive prophylaxis in January 81. Alternate days.
Yeah.
To cover for physiotherapy treatment taking place alternate days in relation to your left knee.
Yeah.
And then if we carry on to 1723002-28 and 29. Excellent. We can see we're in June 81, and it's being marked up as frequency Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Indication Alton Sports Centre. Do you have any recollection of being given prophylaxis cover to attend the Alton Sports Centre?
I think probably there was a time when a group of haemophiliacs used to travel down to the sports centre to do, I think it was called polygym or something, and where we used to go, and it was like a keep fit class. And I think some haemophiliacs must have had cover, me included, for that. That's the only thing I can think of for Alton Sports Centre.
If we go to the next page, we can see exactly that it's polygym is marked.
Yeah, there you go.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday, polygym. And can you tell us any more of what polygym was?
Yeah, like all the keep fit equipment in sports centres, and rubber mats. And I can't remember who the master was, but we used to go down there, and it was just haemophiliacs. Sometimes it was always regular. Whether you went there because you were having more physio, but I think it was just a regular thing to keep the haemophiliacs fit, or try to. And on some occasions, I must have had cover for that, or prophylaxis for that.
Was the polygym equivalent to physiotherapy? Was it building muscle to help?
Yeah, it was.
Or was it more recreational?
Oh no, it was more recreational, I would have thought. But it also did build you up, improve your muscles and your range of movement and things like that.
And at the bottom of the page we're on now, we can see a note that says, would like to go to polygym without prophylaxis and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Again, do you remember any discussion about that in
Well,
81? I know it's a very long time ago.
I always had this problem of sticking needles in. I just wondered why I was having so much of it, even at times when I wasn't bleeding. And I just thought, well, if the idea is to build your muscles and your joints up, and we're covered, it doesn't really tell you if you're going to bleed or not. So I do vaguely remember refusing to have it. And did it without, presumably.
And on this page, we can see that the material that's been used is Interhem and Factor 8 that's also being used.
Yeah.
So again, what appears to be a variety of products.
Yeah, all of them, I think.
Gary, before we leave the question of the type of products that you received, you've passed this to the inquiry, a blue beanie bear with Baxter on it. What can you tell us about that?
Well, it was my mum's, and she found it. Obviously, it's not from 1983, but it's like an example of what was around at the time. I mean, there were certainly things like that. There was notebooks, there was kites, there were towels. I think other witnesses said about watches. I don't remember the watches, but that could have been after I left. But there was
you recall this came in about 2005 because it's got 75
Just one
years.
moment. Do you think you could hand that to Mary, to hand to Gary?
Of course.
Because if the camera is on you, it's dark, and so are you. And
Absolutely.
those who are watching at home won't see it. Gary at least is wearing something light, so it will show up against the background.
I don't think Gary wanted it with him, the whole
Well,
of
no,
his
it's all
evidence, but
I hope this is not embarrassing for you.
No, it's fine, it's all right. Yes,
it's
so-
got 75 years
Yeah, it's
round,
got
so
75-year anniversary.
so you think it came to you in about 2005?
I think it must have done, and it probably came with delivery of home treatment or something.
But your recollection is that it's similar to...
Oh yeah, definitely. They did other colours, and they gave out other things. I remember we getting them from sickbay and the nursing staff. There was usually a big scramble because everyone wanted something or something. So, yeah.
including different coloured beanie
Yeah, I
bears.
think it was a brown one, purple one, things like that. Yeah, I've seen the brown one, but not the purple one, and that one. But.
I just want to pick up a couple of other matters from your records.
Yeah.
In relation to one other point. If we can go to... Sorry. If we can go to TREL 40324 _018, please. Thank you. It's marked the 18th of May 1982, and we can see DDAVP Stage 2 trial. Do you know anything about DDAVP trial in 1982?
I didn't even realise I had it. I had been given any, to be honest. No. Sorry, but no, I don't.
And then if we go to TREL 40325 _004, please.
82.
We have this form, which was in your Treloar's records, which appears to be a consent form signed by your mum
Yeah, that's my mum's right.
for that you would take part in a trial, as explained by Dr. Arenstam. There's no date on it, but do you know anything of a trial that your mum consented you for?
No, I don't.
And from your discussions with your mum, does she recall anything?
No, she recalls absolutely nothing. And I said to her, I think there is something with your writing on, and she definitely doesn't. She doesn't even remember that. But I mean, no, I don't remember any trial. I do. Well, I remember a trial Now, whether it was this one, I remember a trial at college, and I was probably 15, 16, and I can't remember what it was for, but I vaguely remember us getting something like £35 for it, and it went into our bank accounts at school. But what it was for, I honestly can't remember.
You said earlier that once you were treating yourself, once you learnt to do your own therapy.
Yes.
When you went in with a bleed, what happened in terms of how you knew which products to use?
When I went to saw the doctor and he said you've got to take.
Yeah. So if you had a bleed at school,
Yeah.
once you were treating yourself,
Yes.
can you just talk us through how that worked thereafter?
Yeah. We'd leave the doctor's room, go down to where you have your transfusion. We'd go in there. I think we used to take a slip of paper and it would have like 20%, and then the nurse would go to the freezer, get it out, put the bottles on the table for you to mix. We didn't choose what material. It was taken out for us. So we just mixed whatever we were given.
So if you were part of a trial that required you to be on particular products, we don't obviously know that for sure from that piece of paper, but if you were, would you have any awareness that you were being given particular products?
No, I don't think so. I mean, as I say, I can't remember. All I remember is because we were paid a bit, but I honestly don't remember having any information about going on trials, research, or anything like that. My parents never were informed of any of it, except for that one occasion, but my mum can't remember it. But I certainly wasn't, and I never chose material to transfuse myself with.
And in terms of the communication between the school or the haemophilia centre and your parents, from your discussions with them, what were they told about what treatment you were receiving?
Nothing at all.
Their recollection, I think you've said, is that they were never written to or informed directly about the products you were receiving.
No, they didn't even know when I had a bleed. My mum's comment was, we only found about what had happened to you when I told them. So if I went home for a leave weekend every third weekend or during the holidays, I might get in a conversation with them, or I might have a bleed at the time. Other than that, they wouldn't know if I was on Factor 8, what I was on. I wouldn't have even thought they knew when I changed from cryo to concentrate. I
think you've said that their recollection is only ever receiving one letter from the school about you, which you wanted us to put up, which is WITN 1723006, please. Which was a letter in November 1978 informing them that you'd been involved in a serious breach of the college regulations for having girls in your dormitory.
Yeah, see, they can write to you and tell you that, but they don't write and say anything else. So.
What we also have is the next page, please, Shumik, are some of your school reports. And what we've picked up is just the first page, which gives us the date. This one is from the summer term of 1978. And then if we turn to the next page, please, we can see the medical report, which was provided, which simply says he's had quite a number of bleeds, most of which have responded fairly quickly to treatment. And then there's a note that just after half term you had taken ill with a severe
glands defeat. Yeah.
And then if we carry on to WITN 1723025, please. Another report from the summer term of 1981. And next page. Again, the medical report, which states less than average number of bleeds on a programme of physiotherapy in Alton Sports Centre under prophylactic cover aiming at developing the muscles around his joints and reducing the number of bleeds. And then there's a note about the condition of your left knee, which was problematic.
Yes.
But as far as you're aware from talking to your parents, that there was nothing else that told them what you were receiving or even the number of
just
bleeds.
this yearly report or whatever it is.
In terms of the infections that you contracted, if I can start with serum hepatitis. If we could have WITN 1723002, please. And _9. Thank you. We can see here that on the 12th of January 1979, it appears to be the first antibody positive record.
Yep.
And again on the 26th of April 1979, positive for serum hepatitis. And then if we turn to TREL 40325 _038, please. We have a letter from the 12th of December 1979 from Dr. Wasif to Dr. Chisholm, and in the last paragraph we can see that Dr. Wasif records biochemically his SGOT has been persistently raised for the past 9 months, ranging from just about the upper limit of normal to 62 micrograms per litre. Were you told, or were you aware at this stage of the serum hepatitis matter?
No.
And as far as you're aware, were your parents told anything?
No.
When we come on to 1983, you think you were told something about HTLV3 at that time, without naming the other pupil. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us how you were told and what you think you were told?
Yeah, I struggle with the dates, but it was around that period of time. I was with a friend, and we were asked to go up and see Dr. Wasif. And it could have been Tony Aronstam as well. And we went in the room, and he said, "Got some bad news. You're positive for HTLV3 HIV." And that was it, really. He said, "We don't know a lot about it, and the outlook's not good. We can't guarantee that you'd be sort of alive in a couple of years." And that was it, really. And we just stood at each other, looked at each other, and I don't know whether we were in shock. Well, I don't know, sorry to say, I think we laughed at each other. You know, it was just a shock. And that was it. It's all a bit vague now, but yeah. And whether I'd left college or it was just after I left college, because even though I left college, I went back to that centre because I was local, and the other person stayed with me a lot of the times, and we visited friends around the area, so we were always together for 2 or 3 years after we left. So I think that's probably why we were asked together, but I can't honestly remember when, although I did start work that year. And that must have been sort of October 83. And I do remember telling the manager about this, but when it was, whether it was when I first started or whether it was a few months, 6 months after, I don't know. But yeah, they just said, "We don't know a lot about it. We'll do all we can." And yeah, that was it, really.
So although you've placed it in your statement in 1983, it could well have been
it could have been a bit later, but it certainly wasn't years and years later. You know, it may have been the following year in 84 maybe or something, but I honestly don't know.
We're asking about a long time ago.
Yeah,
It's, just so that we're clear, that recollection of the date may not be quite right, but what you do recall is being told
Oh, definitely, yeah.
by Dr. Wasif, possibly Dr. Arenstam, and then being able to give you very limited information.
Yes. Oh, yeah, very limited, yeah.
In terms of your parents,
Mm-hmm.
had they been given any prior warning? What
No.
did they know?
No, well, I say they didn't know anything. My dad obviously did know something, whether it was from the press, because I think there was a lot out in the press at the beginning of 83. So he may have picked something up there, because he tells me that he rang Dr. Wasif and said, look, I'm hearing about all this, HIV/AIDS. Can you tell me if Gary's got it or what the situation is? And Dr. Wasif refused to tell him. And the only thing we can think of that he refused to tell him was because I would have been 18 in the March, so maybe that was the reason. So, no, they didn't know that he refused to say anything, so they were none the wiser. So I told them on my next leave weekend, or after that phone call, after I'd been told by Dr. Wasif, and they were sitting in the front room, and I just said, I've got something to tell you.
And what was their reaction?
Oh, they were upset, shocked. Yeah.
Having gone through your records, you've not been able to identify anything in your records where the HTLV-3 diagnosis is specifically, HIV diagnosis is specifically made, but we do have two documents that give us some assistance in relation to timing.
Oh, right.
WITN 1723042. Please, Shomik. This is a letter from April 95. It's from Dr. Wasif, but in the last paragraph, it states that he's seroconverted to HIV antibody positive sometime between April 1983 and October 1984. In December 1990, he was started on fluconazole to treat esophageal candidiasis, and in January 1991, he was started on zidovudine. And then if we look at WITN 1723043, please. Unfortunately, it's only one page of the letter, that the second page isn't available to us. But if we look at the bottom of the page, the last paragraph suggests you were diagnosed as having AIDS because of esophageal candidiasis in December 1990.
Yeah.
So it would seem that on perhaps retrospective testing that your seroconversion was sometime between April 83 and October 84.
Well, I think it would have to be retrospective then from the other information that we have.
Absolutely.
Because HTLV-3 itself was only identified as such on the 21st of April 84.
Precisely, sir. Yes. You, as you say, left college shortly in the summer of 83, but you still received treatment at the centre because you were local. And if we look at the records you were required to keep, having left the college but doing your own home therapy, WITN 1723002, please. Underscore 036. We can see in the top right-hand corner that this is sort of summer of 84. You had been issued with both haemophil and Lister.
Yeah.
And then in the list, we can see the words site of bleed, cover, 15th of July, 11th of August, 1st of September, 11th of September. And we can see that use. Did anyone talk to you at any point about using products prophylactically, using products for cover in 84?
No, this is home treatment, isn't it, that I did. So it was probably my decision to take a cover dose because I probably wanted to do something that I thought may give me a bleed. So that's probably what that's for. And that's why I call it a cover, going back to cover, a cover dose, because it was just covering myself so I didn't get a bleed,
But in 1984, or even we see the same thing in the autumn of 84, did anyone sit down and talk to you about whether it was wise to use prophylaxis?
No, nothing. Basically, we picked up our factor 8 from Treloar's, took it home, and that was it. And then all they were interested in was make sure you fill in your bleed sheet, and that was it.
And if we go on to underscore 38, please. We're in the autumn of 84, and we can see that you've been issued with cryobuline on this occasion.
Yeah.
And all the entries through October and November are
Just
cover.
That's my writing. Yeah, it would have been because I didn't want to get a bleed. Yeah, that's all really I can say about that. It was just a regular thing I did to stop me bleeding, I suppose. But now whether you call that cover prophylaxis, I don't know.
And obviously that's a different product to
Yeah,
what you've been given previously.
Oh, yeah. The products were never the same. I was always picking up different. It's only in the past probably 10 years or less than 10 years that I've been on the same stuff all the time. Certainly up until the time I left college and for a good few years after that, I was never on one particular brand or material. It was just, whatever they had at the time, I think, really.
And then, in terms of the chronology, when do you recall being told about non-A, non-B hepatitis?
I don't, except that I know I must have been told something in or around 1985. But, whether I was told, see, this is a difficulty. I can't remember anything. I'm only getting this information from letters I've read, and that's the dates they say. Now, 1985, I can't believe I was told then, so it must have been years later I was told, but I can't remember. I remember thinking, it's another virus I've got, but when that was, I don't know, and it was the same thing with CJD, just a letter, so I honestly can't remember the date.
And I think you've said in your statement that you recall thinking, well, it doesn't make much difference.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
The HIV would kill you first. Yeah. Can you tell us a little of what your physical health was like after you left college, after you left Treloar?
It wasn't too bad. I had an artificial knee in when I was 23, and then I started getting lots of problems with my left knee. I had a lot of bleeds, but I held down a full-time job. I was on my feet quite a lot, so it wasn't too bad. And maybe a lot of that cover was because I was going to work, and and I wanted to continue going to work. So it wasn't too bad. It was the next sort of 10 years when I got ill from HIV, Hep C, and obviously my joints started packing up, so that's...
But emotionally, in your 20s and 30s, you've described yourself as being on a mission to destroy yourself.
Yes, I think probably I was. Getting told you've got 2 years to live. Even though I kept a job down, I didn't really care about things that much. And, and then we got... in that time we got ex gratia payment, didn't we? So if I wanted to do something, I could, I suppose. So yeah, I was just fed up, and yeah, those 10 years were pretty rough.
You've described that you went off the rails.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us any more about that time, or I can read a part of your statement?
Yeah, well, I think I tried to kill myself once. I stuck a car through a brick wall and only managed to break my ankle, so it wasn't particularly successful. But yeah, I was just out of it. Yeah, I just didn't care. And then I sort of pulled myself together. Amy was born. And now you live with it and cope with it every day.
And from your discussions with your parents, particularly your mum, can you tell us anything of the effect and the impact on her at that time?
Oh, destroyed them. They hid it well. But it's affected the whole family, my brother. So, yeah, it's hard for me to tell you how they feel. I can only imagine, but it's destroyed them.
Despite all of that, as you've said, you kept working till 2009.
Yes.
What happened then that made you stop work?
I think it was the Hep C treatment more than anything else. That was really bad. That was the first lot I had, like the interferon and all that. So I just couldn't do it. I mean, I was working for the Red Cross at the time, worked there for 20 years, 18 years. But I just couldn't get up in the morning. I was so tired. And luckily, at the time, my job was changing, and so I managed to leave on sort of good terms, and so I didn't sort of leave badly or anything. So it all came at a good time, but I physically couldn't do it anymore.
There were two things going on with your health around then, weren't there? The first was that you were getting a lot of infections.
Yes.
And so you went on to heart medications. And I think you've said you had quite significant side effects from that.
Yeah, I mean, I was tired. My bowel, my stomach was, terrible. Shortness of breath, sore throats. I mean, you name it, I had it, sort of thing. And on top of that, the bleeds. So yeah, I mean, once I came off the first lot of Hep C treatment, I recovered. But I mean, I had pneumonia and things like that. So it was a bit of a worrying time for my parents again. So yeah. So
there was that part, and then there was also the hepatitis C treatment, as you say, and you had pegylated interferon and ribavirin for 6 months. But that wasn't successful.
No, I couldn't complete the course. I think I was taking it off it early because it was, just killing me, basically. So I didn't clear it and came off it early. And then, I don't know, 3 or 4 years later, I went on newer treatment and cleared it.
And what's the situation with your liver? What's been happening?
It's cirrhotic. And I think my liver functions tests aren't too bad, and I don't think it's getting any worse now since I've cleared it. I still have the antibodies and everything, but yeah, I mean that's down to the Hep C. So.
You've spoken a little bit about the emotional impact of the infections on you, but also in your statement you've picked up that also has an impact on your current haemophilia treatment and your relationship with your clinicians.
Yes, I've changed I was ill a couple of years ago when I went on to Hemlibra, and for whatever reason I didn't get on with it, and so I was taken off it, and I'm now on long-lasting factor 8. But yeah, I did have a couple of conversations with my specialist because I was quite ill about 18 months ago or 2 years ago, and I had to go in the hospital. I went to Basingstoke because I was having trouble with my bowel, and they thought it was my liver or my stomach. And just out of the blue, one of the gastro chaps, nothing to do with haemophilia, just one of the normal A&E people, just said, "Oh, you're on this new treatment." And I went, "Yes." And he said, "Oh, you do realise it kills the bowel, do you?" And that was a bit of a shock. So I questioned it with Sarah. She took me off it. And I explained my concerns about it because giving it to young patients and everything like that. So she did say to me that she had changed something in the guidelines and that she would now tell people that it could cause clots in your bowel and stuff like this, which it never did before. And that's why I brought to your attention that report the other day.
But in terms of that interaction about your current haemophilia treatment, reflecting on what's happened in the past in terms of the infections you've got, has that history, that reality of what's happened to you, affected how you deal with clinicians now?
Yes, I think it is. I mean, I have no trust for them. I don't believe a lot of what they say. I trust my clinician now. She's very good, and she does explain everything properly now, whereas in the past nothing was explained to you. So, yeah, I question things a lot more, whereas before I just went along with whatever the doctor would say, and you believe, you trust the doctors that are treating you, and that's what I did. But I think because of all this, I question everything now with the doctor. I think a lot of us do.
In relation to the inquiry, you also sought your medical records from
Yes.
Treloar's. Can you tell us about how you got hold of them?
Well, I applied to North Hampshire Hospital, Basingstoke, for them because everything was transferred from the Treloar haemophilia. I can't remember the date now when it was, but everything went up there. And originally they said they didn't have anything. And I got a few bits of paper, that was about it. And then out of the blue, just got a phone call saying we found some down the back of a cupboard or in a cupboard or something like that, and you seem to have files and files of them now, but it was a struggle to get them. They were just saying we haven't got them, and when they did get them, they had to be read by someone in the main hospital, and I know things were taken out, and it's always, they seem to find something at the last minute, For me giving evidence here today, it's, all last week and the week before they were finding things, and so it's been quite difficult to find records and get them.
And then earlier in your evidence, you mentioned that you had received some financial assistance.
Yeah.
You received some payments from the Macfarlane Trust.
Yes.
But you also received some grants for some particular things.
Yes. Yeah.
What can you tell us about how you found the process of applying for those grants?
Well, I never did it because I just didn't want to do it. It was from hearing everyone else's experiences, it was too much hassle. So it's only in the past sort of 3 or 4 years that I've applied, I think. I applied for roof repairs on my bungalow, and they helped with the conservatory as well. Lately, in the past few years, it's been quite straightforward, but it has been difficult in the past, hence why I didn't really bother.
You also received monthly payments from Skipton.
Yes.
And now from the EIBSS.
Yes.
But you've had some particular difficulties in relation to your mortgage.
Yeah.
And EIBSS.
Yeah, well, I found it very difficult to get a mortgage, to be honest. I think if it hadn't have been for a really friendly mortgage advisor, I don't think I'd got one, because there was no way of me confirming to them that this was guaranteed in any way. You know, it wasn't like I could give them wage slips and show them what I was earning regularly, because this happened after I'd finished work, obviously, or thereabouts. So yeah, I've been, I asked McFarlane Trust and IBIS if they could confirm something. I think they do now, but in the past they didn't. It was very difficult. But Nationwide were the ones that helped out the most, and that's who I'm still with now. But it's only on short-term, fixed 2-year things.
And the problem at the time was that they'd only say they were currently providing the payments.
That's right. Yeah, there was no ongoing. They wouldn't say it was for life or even till retirement. They wouldn't do that. There was no guarantee, which is what they were looking for.
So they're the questions I have for Gary, but I'm just going to turn, if I may, to see if his... Just 2 points to ask you
fine.
about. Just turn it up. In your statement, you've said that you developed cirrhosis in March 2011 and that you were then diagnosed with liver cancer. Is that right?
Well, when I went to Southampton, I don't know if it was a FibroScan test and ultrasound and things like that. When they gave me my FibroScan result, they said I had cancerous cells in my liver. So, right, okay. And so they said, well, hopefully the treatment, this is the newer treatment which I cleared, hopefully it would disappear or go back to normal or something like that, because I originally put that in my original statement. And then I cleared it, and they never said anything about it. And then I asked, and I said, well, what about this cancerous cells or something? And they just said, oh, no, that's all right, it's all clear. And that was it. So I just honestly don't know where all that came from. But that's what she said originally.
And just to pick up a little bit more about the emotional effects of all of this on you, you've said very powerfully in your statement that being infected with HIV and hepatitis C through no fault of my own has ruined my life. I can handle haemophilia, but these infections are killers. The vast majority of my school friends have died. There are only 17 of us still alive out of 89 infected, and that your close relationships have been irreparably damaged.
Yes, I think that's a fair comment.
Do you want to add to it?
Yeah, I mean, it's having, I have guilt still being here. It's stigma, losing 72 friends, school friends, who you've known since you were that high. So that's been difficult. I think I'm an angry old man now. So I don't think I'm that good at relationships, but it's hard to explain. It affects everyone, not just me, but everyone out there. So yeah, it's difficult. For my parents, for Amy, Mum and Dad, everyone really. And it's just hard, because as I say, you lose all these people. Why? So, yeah.
Take a moment.
That's right.
You right?
Yeah.
Just one thing I want to ask. The last answer you gave shows how close you were to a lot of friends, most of whom are no longer with us. But would I be right in thinking that while you were there, you discussed a lot of things between you, including the treatment you were getting?
Yeah, we did. Well, I mean, there was questions going on. I mean, I always remember speaking to my best mate. We always thought we were in some sort of weird experiment because we just couldn't understand why they were pushing us so much to have all these injections. And I still hate giving myself an injection today. So, yeah, we thought of things like that. We talked about it, but moreover, we've spoke about it since we've left, if you like. At the time, we were just unaware. You know, we just did as we were told to, and it's not until later that you think back and say, oh, maybe they did. You know, that's why they did that, or something like that. So, yeah, I think in the past 20 years or something, we've been more aware of why things happened the way they did there, I think. And I think they were just, I think we were a big group of haemophiliacs that they wanted to, I don't know what they wanted to do really, but yeah.
But dividing it up into two different periods, the time you were there and secondly the time since. So the time you were there, was that at the time that you and your roommate thought that you were possibly subject to an experiment?
Yes. In our later years, when we were sort of 16, 17, and then especially with it all blowing up in the press, and then, you know, maybe it was just our teenage way of thinking or something, I don't know, but a number of times we thought that. You know, we didn't talk about it all the time, but, you know, occasionally we thought, well, that's weird, all of us, you know, why are we all having this? And then after college, I tried to forget it and put it out of my mind, but, and then after the person passed away, I sort of tried to forget it. But, yeah, there was niggling little things in my head, why are they doing these things, why are they doing that things, but you never questioned it. You know, I never asked.
This would all have been before you were, what age were you when you left school, 18 or 19?
18.
So you were born in 65, so that means 83 you left. So it was just at the time that the people were beginning to talk about AIDS in blood and so on. Did that have any impact upon you as a group that you recall?
Yeah, I think it did. I mean, I remember still while we were at college that newspapers, every morning I used to go into the library and read newspapers, and then when the HIV and things or AIDS came out in the newspapers disappeared from the library, and so there was always questions why that was done and things like that.
So you think someone in authority
they were purposely taken away, I think.
Right.
Yeah, they were purposely taken away. I mean, we were 16, 17 then, so at break time we'd just go down the newsagent and buy them anyway. But I mean, you know, to find out, because that's all we knew. The only information we could get about anything was reading it in the press, and it was all highlighted and made worse because we weren't given any information about it.
So you knew it was in the press because you went down to the local newsagent and got
my
a copy.
father had told me it was in the press because he rang up to find out about it.
But it wasn't available for you in the library?
No.
And when you discussed that with your mates, did you come to any view about it?
Not really. I think we were worried, scared. We talked about it and thought, well, how long have we got? You know, how's it going to affect us? We'd been at school to have an education, to learn, in my case, a trade, but what point was that when, you know, all this was going to carry on? So we didn't get any information from anywhere except for what we found out ourselves, really.
So at that time, rather, you must have had the sense that not everything was being told to you by the clinicians.
Oh, absolutely.
So you had that sense that they were economical with what they were
Yes.
telling you.
Yes.
Even then.
Even then, I would say, I agree.
And afterwards, then in the few years after, you were living nearby, I think, from what you said. How did you chat about it amongst your friends who had been at school with you?
Well, I used to go back to reunions, and we used to get together then, because there was nothing like this then. There was no internet then, I don't think, hardly. So we used to go back once a year to reunions, and we'd talk about it then. The haemophiliacs would get together. But I didn't go back to many because there was less and less every year, and it just became solemn and sad. So I personally tried to shut it away, and I really haven't been talking about it or getting involved up, you know, only for the past sort of 10 years, really, with the campaigns and the inquiries. So I just blocked it out. But for the first few years after I left college, yeah, we spoke about it, but it was only, we really saw people passing away a couple of years after that, you know, so, you know, it wasn't over the past coming 10 years, so I didn't really talk about it, to be honest.
Well, you've described yourself now as an angry old man, even though I have to say you're still in your 50s. But what makes you angry?
I don't know. I am angry because of what's happened, because I think it was avoidable. When they told us afterwards, oh, it was just an accident, when they decided to say something about it. And I just think what could have been for us all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have nothing further.
Do you want to ask whether you want to say anything?
Oh, I'm so sorry, sir. Is there anything else you would like to say?
I've got something I'd like to read out, if I may, please. Yeah, thank you. Okay. At least 72 haemophiliac boys attended Treloar School, College, are now dead as a direct result of their infections. There are a handful of survivors, of which I am one. We live life daily with uncertainty, stigma, lifelong illness, infection, physical, mental pain, as well as survivor's guilt. At the age of 10 years old, my parents entrusted my education and medical care to the Treloar Trust, incorporating Lord Mayor Treloar School, College, Hospital and Haemophilia Centre. We all trusted the words, opinions and advice that the medical professionals gave us at the time. Why would we not? We were little boys. Our parents and us were blissfully unaware of the risks that were being taken with our young lives and of the cruel tragedy that was about to unfold. It is shocking, sad, and so hard to believe that this was ever allowed to happen. 40 years ago, we were assured that this was an unavoidable accident. We now know this to be untrue, and that Factor 8 and Factor 9 has killed and destroyed the lives of most of my school friends and their families. These deep scars will never heal, and the memories of the Treloar story will haunt us all forever. Sadly, many of the leading haematologists and medical specialists are no longer with us. However, many are, and we are saddened and disappointed that they are unwilling to attend this inquiry and sit in this chair before you. This only confirms my suspicions that over 40 years the truth has been withheld. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, Sir Brian, and the inquiry team for giving us the opportunity to tell our shocking stories. I would like to thank my family for their support and love through the years. And finally, the comradeship and strength of the remaining Treloar survivors. Without them, I would not have been able to do this today.
I think the applause says it all. It's not easy for anyone, whoever they are, to sit in that chair. And it certainly, I don't think it's been easy for you. Until just about the end of your testimony, you were disguising it remarkably well.
Gave it a go.
Oh, I've got a few cancerous cells. Oh, what's that? But you have, I think, shown that what matters perhaps more to you than your own state of health is the loss of the others whose company you miss.
Yeah.
So thank you for telling us and showing us how deeply that is felt.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we'll take a break until 5 to 4. Then I think it's Mr. BA, isn't it?
Mr. BA.
So I have got my BA.